Are you able to record it?
Yep, I've just pressed record.
Great.
So welcome
Brilliant.
everybody. This year, more than ever with COVID-19, we need to connect and support each other. Hence our inviting everybody to benefit from this year's International Coaching Week of CPD and Business Building webinars. I'm your host, Dawn Campbell, Sales and Marketing Director at the International Authority for Professional Coaching and Mentoring, or as we like to call it, the IAPC&M. And I'm delighted to welcome our special guest speaker, Wendy Fry, on day one of our calls, the last call of day one. So how are you, Wendy?
I'm really well. I've had an awesome day, Dawn. I'm well, thank you.
Good. Well, firstly, apologies for my video playing up. It's worked all day long. I can't understand why it's not now, but hey ho, that's technology for you. So Wendy and I go back quite a long way, and I was thinking about this the other day. We originally came into contact when I came across her book, Find You, Find Love, and I got in touch with her. She had short hair then instead of the luscious locks that she flick around now, and we've been friends ever since. So we're passionate writers, and we've co-authored a couple of books in the Dialogue Guru series, and we're both keen walkers and amateur photographers, so we've got a lot in common. Wendy's a prolific inspirer on Facebook, and she joined the Facebook challenge of walking 1,000 miles in 2020. And recently she shared a funny story I can relate to because something happened to me. She was out enjoying a walk last week, saw a plant in the woods that she didn't recognize, stepped in as you do, that little bit closer to photograph it, and promptly fell into a ditch which wasn't visible. I remember when I did it, I was covered head to toe in stingy nettles. So how were you about that, Wendy?
Yeah, do you know what? There were stinging nettles there. And there was, what was really funny and actually really sweet, there was a cat that witnessed the whole thing, and it came over and licked my knees. It was hilarious. I ended up in a right mess. I had new trainers on, and it's a funny story anyway. Got to see the funny side of it.
You have, and I know that you're super inspired by nature because I follow you on Facebook, and you credit that really for boosting your sense of creativity. And you find a good walk clears the head, as any dog walker will probably attest to as well. And of course, it provides you with plenty of funny stories that we can all relate to. So we've all heard how having a published book is the new calling card. Essentially, it's an important part of our signature package, isn't it? And it sets us apart as an expert in our field. So we're really looking forward to hearing how we can find our author's voice. Because I do know that there's a saying that whilst many of us think there's a book inside of us, many of us want to keep it in there. But how do you make it a reality? Because I think you've got your third book out today.
Yes, yeah. Today is the launch of my third book, and it's a great question because really turning those dreams into a reality, it does take action, it does take commitment. And it also takes a willingness to maybe learn what you don't know. It may take support of others to help you. But actually the biggest commitment is trust in yourself. It's your story, you have a story to tell. And it's about being vulnerable and trusting that you can go through that vulnerability either with support or to journal your way through, as well as writing your book. Journal your way through, because writing is an emotional journey, as we both know. Sometimes it can be frustrating, the technical side of writing, as in employing other services. Sometimes for me the writing isn't the hardest part, it's like the tech and the other support that goes with it. But it's having that commitment. For me, I always, and this is where coaching really comes into play for me, is I always start with the end in mind. So I have an end goal, I make that commitment, and I have that end goal, and then I step it back. I have action plan. I'm quite a visual planner. Mm-hmm. So having that dream turning into a reality, if we all use our coaching training, and we begin with the end in mind, and then we make sure one of the key things is to stay motivated and on track, which is why I will walk. If something isn't flowing, I'll go out and walk or dance or sing. So this is around using your own processes which energize you. It's around using your coaching processes and also asking for support when it's needed, and just recognizing that you're a human being too. You may have a title of a coach, or you're in a title of a therapist or some other kind of supporting role. But actually, when it does come to writing your own book, is just to allow that human element to be there. And if emotions come up and vulnerability comes up, it's okay. It's part of working through. It's part of your own evolution. And in my experience, turning that book into a reality, it's just amazing when you hold your own book in your hands. And better still, if that book is going to go on to help your tribe and the people that you're supporting, it's brilliant.
So you're going to show us a copy of it then?
Yeah, let me do that. So thank you. So this is Write From Your Heart, Discover Your Author Voice Through Journaling. So the book is actually aimed at anyone who wants. We all have the potential to write a book, and it's recognizing that it is an emotional journey. So within the book itself, it's available on Amazon, but you've got everything you need in there to help you structure a book. It can be read as a self-help book, but it can also be used as an emotional aid. So within it, there are various different coaching questions. But most of all, it's just showing you that this was once an idea. I have my first and second book behind me. First book was Find You, Find Love. My second book was Mothers and Daughters. And it's, I started without a book, and anyone that's listening, I want to encourage you that even if you have any limiting beliefs about writing or publishing and printing your book, I'm going to take you through some action points and questions, but those dreams can turn into a reality. I don't consider myself anybody special, but if I can do it, you can do it, and I'm going to share what I can. I'm going to add value and share what I can to plant those seeds, to build on the seeds that the listeners have already planted. Probably most people listening are blogging, or they've written content, they've written theses or exams for different things, and it's really worth thinking about what have you already got that you can use, or what can you build on. So it's really great to share that today. I wasn't sure if I could sort of show the cover, but yeah, thank you, Dawn.
Oh, no, you're very welcome. What you've just said reminds me that when we had Peter Thompson on one of our webinars last year, he said anybody can write a book, because if you're writing shopping lists, if you're writing letters, if you're writing blogs, you've got the makings of a story. So what was your personal journey that got you started with writing?
Yes, it goes back a long way. My first memory of trying to write was 4 or 5 years old, and had a terrible time trying to learn the alphabet. I would miss out complete chunks of it, get it all back to front. So the very early memory is actually trying to write and being quite frustrated that I couldn't get it right. If we're talking about the professional journey and how that came to being, it's really kind of uncanny how it lined up. And I have a colleague who's a Hay House author, and they wanted me to contribute on a chapter around confidence. So Kate Marilat, who's a co-author with Cole Dawson, Matrix Reimprinting, they asked me to submit a chapter on confidence. So I was up for hours and wrote like 16 pages, and I was just in my element putting this together. And Kate actually said to me, my goodness, like all of this that you sent over, this is like, we only wanted like a few pages first, like you've got a mini book here. So she said, have you ever thought about writing a book? And I was like, oh, right, okay. So what transpired with having that submission accepted in the Hay House book, that really forged me ahead. I went on actually to have some of my own mentoring. I had writing mentoring with Sasha Allenby. I went into 2 of her programs, and that actually helped me. I mean, going right back, having that mentoring and realizing that there was, and still sometimes is, a vulnerability in writing. I felt well supported to actually write my book. So my first book, Find You, Find Love, was written while I was in that 3-month mentoring program. It took me longer to write. I completed within 9 months. Most of my books take around 9 months to a year to write and research. So the early journey began with, that 4 or 5-year-old not being able to learn. In my teenage years were incredibly challenging. My family split up, and I just kept everything inside. And what I recognized in my own journey, or when I'm supporting people as a writing coach, is that when you write, it brings things up, things you thought you'd dealt with or left in the past. It actually does bring things to the surface. So writing is cathartic. My third book, which is around discovering your author voice through journaling, is around acknowledging the things that you haven't said as well as the things that you have said. So again, sort of touching and giving credit. When I was 15 in my secondary school, and Mr. Howard, my teacher there, set a homework which was called My Family. And I just wrote, there wasn't enough paper in the house. It all just came out, and there was, bits of paper going in with my exercise book at school. And it was an outlet for me. It was an outlet to express what was going on, because I didn't know who to talk to about it. And, this is the beauty of writing. And as well, any experience any of us have been through, whether it's family breakup or learning how to do something, or our coaching studies, or the research that we're doing for our businesses, or even what's going on globally, is all of us can think about, okay, what's happened in my life? And actually, what do I have to share that might help other people? So it's quite a mixed writing journey I've been on, but I'm addicted. I've already got another couple of ideas lined up to what to write. I love it.
I suppose it depends on the sorts of books that you're writing as well. Yours are very heart-led and very emotional, and as you say, you're very honest and lay yourself bare. So I think in times like that, you either need to become your own best client or have a good support network, as you said, have mentors, have coaches around you to help deal with what comes out of Pandora's box, because we all know that writing is cathartic, and it certainly sounds like that's been a major part of the process for you, Wendy.
Yes, it's you have the catharsis as you go along. Most of the authors that I'm supporting, they recognise, or it's been quite a common, if you like, quote, "Oh, I think my first book is for me." So most people that are writing in the, let's say, in the self-help genre, then guaranteed they are writing part of their own emotive journey, even if they don't include a detailed bio or what's led them to writing a book. Everybody listening in has been on their own journey. We've all been through our own stories, and more people are wanting to read a book where they know who the author is. They know the author as a human being, not necessarily a human doing. So when we're able to share our experience and our wisdom, or what got us through, the reader may take something from that helps them as well. Obviously, when you're writing for me now, or I've learned over the years, that I'm writing for my audience. I'm not writing a book that's for me because I enjoy writing. My third book, I actually tested it out in a group of 100 people to actually test the content. So I did it differently this time. And the exercises and prompts and tips within the book, all of these were tested out within a private Facebook group. So I'm actually writing to what my readers' needs are, and writing in a way that's beneficial, rather than writing a book for the sake of a book or having it as an asset. But a book is an asset, and you may gain income from that book. But it's actually thinking about, well, who do I want to reach? Who am I enjoying working with? And actually, as a coach, how do I expand my reach? How do I excel on a professional level? And how is the book that I write either going to change your own life as a coach and a professional, and or your reader's life? So a book really is a stepstone to support programs, to VIP days, to trainings, to online. It just depends. And, this is one of the questions that I'm going to be asking is, what's your why? Why do you want to write? And I know with the Dialogue Guru series of books, Dawn, there was a clear goalpost of what was wanting to be achieved with the authors within those books. So it's actually for all of the listeners to question, what's your why, and why do you want to write a book?
I think it's really interesting what you just said there, because I often read, and I subscribe to writers' magazines and writers' news, and they always say, write the sort of book that you want to read. If you try and write for your readership, you're not going to succeed as well as you could if you just wrote from the heart and for yourself almost. But you've turned that on its head, and perhaps you didn't do that in your first book, but because you're an established author, you're in a position that you've got a readership, and so you could actually pilot it. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. And I love as well how you listened in there, and we've got, in a way, a couple of different examples. So, and this again, I share honestly because I think it's helpful. So in my first book, I started writing in 2013. That was released 2014, and I perhaps didn't have the confidence, the amount of confidence I wanted at the time to stand on my own as like me. This is who I am. This is Wendy Fry. What I did in that first book was I had been very blessed in my life to have training and gone on to be a practitioner and a trainer in the emotional freedom technique, or modern energy tapping as we may know it, positive EFT. And I actually wanted to credit the people who helped me on my own journey. So my first book, it had lots of different samples in of other people's processes, which I had permission to use within the book. And what I didn't do at that point was, it was almost like I hadn't fully acknowledged myself on my journey. And I just wanted to get these techniques out. I wanted to share what I'd learned. I wanted to share something that was going to help other people. And I also wanted to share. So sometimes we all may come across clients who would like to work with us, but they may not have the financial backing for support. So within my first book, certainly it was more of a workbook. And if it's okay, I'll just lean over and grab it here. So you can see the size is different. So again, when you're writing, it's about considering a size. And within this book, there are various visuals that I've used which show practical exercises and which show lots of practical exercises. You've got insightful questions. So within the first your first book, you may find that or certainly again, just with my own story, there were parts of it that I decided not to include because I realized as I went along, I was having like an emotional clearing. Not everyone wants to hear all the ins and outs of your growing up or the struggles, or also as well, if you're writing about family or people in your life and relationships, you also need to be mindful of what you're sharing in a book. So just to kind of touch on that, maybe if you're writing fiction, so it could be there are people here that have written fiction or want to write fiction. It may be that you weave your experience into characterization. It may be that you embed your experiences within a case study, and you can share that way. But certainly, yes, in my first book, I recognized as I went through and it was complete, that was a very personal journey of sharing processes that had helped me come through and work through a lot of past emotion. And the second book, Mothers and Daughters, again was, so all of my books in a way are around relationships, the relationship you have with yourself, and or the relationship that you have with others. So you're completely right. In a way, there is no right way to write a book. It's subjective. And this is why when I'm working with anyone, I will always go through I call it Define Your Ideal Reader Blueprint. And we're actually thinking about who is it you're writing for and what's your reason for writing. It's actually enough for some people. I've worked with some people, they don't want to put it on Amazon. They want to write a book about their life. They've been gone through trauma or wonderful things. And they actually just want a batch of 50 books to share with their family, to leave a legacy, to have their voice heard. To some people are writing and they're doing it as a charity thing. They're not wanting it for promotion. So this is really to be clear on what's your why, or what do you think your why is. So, literally with people listening in with pen and paper, is to write that question down. What's my why? Why do I want to write a book? So, is that book, and I just got some notes here, because for me, I wanted to make a difference. And for some people, so these are just some generals, so some people are wanting to write for recognition, to have that author status. Some are wanting it to raise their profile. And actually, I found that writing a book, people start to take you seriously, and they're like, oh, you've written a book. Yes, it takes commitment. We can all do it. Many people want to write to help others. As I've mentioned, we can gift a book, or we can put it as a PDF, make it really accessible for our clients. We can use it as a stepstone to training programs. Some people want to write, they want to go the professional publishing route and gain a publishing deal. Some people want it as like a fame thing. Others want a healthy work-life balance. So for me, I actually love to write in my free time, and I love to write professionally. Some people, this is really big, is that they want to feel heard. They want to have their voice witnessed, and they want to feel heard. It comes through in all of the coaching sessions that I have. There's often a part of, the past aspect, the inner child, past history, whatever you want to call it, where that person, even though they might be highly professional or different kind of status level within a company, they could be writing from the 12-year-old boy or the 13-year-old woman, or the, midlife, going through divorce, or people have died, or all of these different things. So writing, as I say, is an emotional journey, and it's not, to me, it's not one size fits all. It's about working with the author, finding out what's your intention and what will it mean for you to write. Sometimes authors, when they start out, they don't know there's 50 questions on the blueprint, and it maybe some come back with 23, 27 answered. There might be blanks. But this is why it's important to have structure and to have focus. And it's okay not to know everything. I didn't know everything. I had writing mentoring. At the moment, I'm studying for an MA in creative writing, so I want to go into fiction. But it's broad, Dawn. It's a brilliant question, because it's broad, and I think it's around whatever you read is seeing if it gels with you, see if it's a good fit, experience it. Play out different ways of writing, try it one way and then try it another way. It's how you find your own way.
And I guess that sort of touches on Peter Thompson's point that he made last year, that books are getting shorter, the sort of short reads. And he quoted some research from the States that said, if you've got less than 96 pages, you're going to have an 80% readership. Because there's lots of stats out there that says, everybody downloads all the freebie books, but less than 10% ever actually go back and read them. But if you buy a book that's really small and short, these quick reads, you're going to reach your target market. And then once you get to 100 pages to 200 pages, that drops dramatically in terms of somebody actually finishing the book. And then 200 pages plus, well, you've kind of lost the audience. So I guess it depends on what kind of book you write.
I think as well, what you can do is you can condense it down, and I've certainly seen that pattern over the years of writing and what I'm learning. The industry is constantly changing, and also as well, we all lead busy lives, and people may not have the time. I mean, audiobook as well is changing as well. A lot of people are listening to audiobook if they got busy, or may not even be commuting, could be working from home and have more time to read or listen to audiobooks. But it's thinking about how can you say what you want to say with less words. I mean, listeners here can probably gauge that I'm quite a chatty person. When you're writing, it may be, okay, so if I have 6 pages here, what can I say in 3 pages, or what can I say in 1 page? So this again is when you're writing a book, it doesn't necessarily need to be pages long and chapter deep. 12 chapters might have been the norm, 10 chapters. But my most recent book I've done in parts, so I put that into 4 parts, still quite a lot of content in it. But I've actually read some fantastic books. In fact, I don't have one here, it's over in my bookshelf, but my NLP trainer, John Cassidy Rice, he's written some excellent books that are short and really content-rich information. So again, it's worth exploring the different book pages, different book sizes, different formats, and actually how you can use your books. A really great way of pulling your book into pieces, as it were, is to offer your readers a PDF. Something Amazon are also doing is they're doing a look inside option, so you can get a look and a feel into that author's book. But certainly, I also have a colleague who's doing absolutely fantastically, selling PDF or books. He's an author, but he's also selling PDFs, which are around the interview process and careers process on YouTube for lower cost than a book, but actually content-rich, valuable information. And his business has improved enormously by having a shorter read and having more shorter reads available at a lower cost unit. So this is also worth considering for anyone who enjoys writing and wants to get a variety of subjects or content out there. And guaranteed as well, or certainly what I do is I'm only just finished, I'm still marketing my book that was launched today, but already I got a folder and another book and loads of stuff on the go of other book ideas. So once I've stopped writing one book, it's like I'm almost like one leg into the next book. So once you're in the flow of writing, is just have that book to hand and think about, okay, so what else can I share? What else is going to add value to my clients? Who am I working with that will benefit from a takeaway book or a short read that is going to be useful for them to read in between the coaching sessions that they have with you, or that you can give as a gift when they sign into your coaching program or they're attending your retreat or your one-day workshop or your online offering. So much you can do.
I mean, you're absolutely right. There's lots of different reasons for writing a book. And I've always loved writing ever since I was at boarding school and got my first 5-year leather-bound diary. And I've been a scribbler ever since. But certainly when you're in business, having some sort of published material, whether it's a PDF or whether it's a full-blown grown-up book, does set you apart as an expert in your field. And particularly when it's content-rich, factual information as opposed to fiction, then I think having a small book and creating a series is going to help you build brand loyalty, and you're writing then for an audience that you know. Have you got something like that in the pipeline?
Yes and no. So at the moment I'm playing around with ideas. So I've always written in the self-help genre, though part of my experience has been also working with kids and youth. And part of my work is as a therapist as well. And I've recognized the need perhaps for more children's books as well. And children's books, they may not want to read a self-help book. They're younger and they need something creative where there might be an emotion running through different characters within the book. So I'm actually thinking around, so I haven't written children's books before. I've created children's resources for the family work that I've done in the past as a therapist. So I'm actually thinking around writing children's books with the emotional side, with the fiction touch. The other area that I'm thinking of working in is to have a fiction book, though with the theme of a character or a coach within the fiction book, which will still in a way educate the reader around the coaching process or around the therapy process. Mm-hmm. So I believe it's possible to, this is where I guess also as well, I'm challenging myself. So I know I've written 3 self-help books now, and I believe I'll continue to write self-help. Something I want to write. So my next book, or one of my next books, is I'd love to write around grounding and earthing and forest bathing in nature, and actually using the earth or using nature as a means of well-being in your life. So that will definitely be self-help. And I'm also I write poetry as well. So there are lots of offshoots and lots of avenues I plan to go down. in terms of a series, maybe this is a problem with being a Sagittarius. I got lots of arrows, lots of ideas, and I get excited and I just don't know what to start first. So sometimes I need to rein myself in, but certainly for anyone listening is thinking about what you teach as a coach, or to go through all your files and actually think around the kinds of clients that are coming to you. What's the end goal they want to achieve, or what's the problems that they're starting with? And you can almost plot out. So a lot of my earlier work is working with clients with anxiety, depression issues, low self-esteem, confidence issues. And possibly as well, I'd attracted those kinds of clients because they were my own experiential issues. You know, they say you teach what you know. So anyone who's listening in, it's almost like literally to plot a timeline of what experiences have you been through, and your clients that are coming to you, or, you know, even if it's someone chatting at work, or your friends, what kind of advice do they ask you for? What's going on in your life? And what advice do you give that could be turned into a book series? And the beauty of this as well is you can pertain to it. Some of the people that I'm working with at the moment, they're writing books in a dual process. And it may be that in both books, they're referring back and forth to this, you know, cross-referencing book, let's say book 2 and book 3. And also what the beauty of working on Amazon and Amazon Kindle is you can actually link books back and forth. And then what that does is hooking your reader in. This is my second book coming. This is when it's due. So already I was promoting or letting people know my second book was coming. My third book rather was coming last year. So again, you know, book series is wonderful because once people read quickly as well, they read a lot more quickly than it takes to write it. So letting people know, hey, this is what I'm working on, this is what I'm doing. It keeps your group interested. You can have a newsletter sign up. You can let them know your news. You can also, people who already know, like, and trust you, they've read your books. You can also use this group if you wish to as like a beta reader test group, or you're inviting them to a private membership. You know what, I don't charge for that, but people coming into a group and I want to test out content, get feedback, ideas. So it's, you know, there's so much you can do, so many possibilities when it comes to writing.
And definitely as a writer, you have to be organised. The questions have started to come in.
Yes, for sure. Mind you, if you were to see my desk and the floor at the moment, Dawn, it's been a bit crazy this week.
So some quick fire questions for you. How do you overcome imposter syndrome when you begin the process of writing, David says?
Yeah, it's interesting because the imposter syndrome comes up quite often for a lot of people. So my advice would be exactly what I say to clients in session: write in the third person. So you would write it in a way that, you know, David sat there at his desk thinking, and then whatever the internal dialogue might be. So sometimes it's helpful to disassociate, because when you're writing and you're in it and you're playing, I call it the what if game. You're going through this, or what if people say this, what if they think that, you know, that you could have a million what ifs that will limit you and stop you. So this is around, in a way, there could be a core belief and then those supporting beliefs. But actually, if you get out of your own way and you write in the third person, and also what I call writing through it. So it may be that, and this is where you can use timelines. So it may be that an element of the third person is in the past, you know what, and I'm going to use the name David because you've offered that question. So it's not to make it personal, because I don't know David on a personal level, but just to kind of plot it out to help anyone listening. So it could be, okay, the first memory David had as imposter syndrome or not believing he could was in, I'm going to make it up, you know, PE in school. He didn't get picked for the sports team. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. They'll never pick me. I'm not a winner. Kind of all of this mental dialogue. And then it could be, you know, where am I at now? So what part of me is this imposter syndrome? So you could actually give it a voice. You know, what does that imposter look like? And actually, if we were to, so much of my work is around coding. So we could code it. Okay, this imposter syndrome, what color is that imposter? Oh, it's grey. Okay. What colour do we need to lift and lighten that imposter syndrome? Oh, orange, or like a rainbow or a fountain or something. So it might seem like an odd answer, but when you go into that third person and you're working through past, present, and future, sometimes I will take people, hey, let's just go to the future. When this imposter syndrome is over, how did David write his book? What did he stop doing? What did he start doing? What did he do differently? And actually, when he ended that story, because that imposter syndrome book is a book all in and of itself, that end piece, that final page in the book, the end of that story, what was the end? And then right from the new beginning. So, you know, we can move around in time, or we can just go straight to the end result, looking back to now. In a year's time, when David's book is written and published, he's got rave reviews on Amazon, he's getting book signings, career level's gone up. How did he do it? How good did it feel? And then you can tap in, you can anchor in all those submodalities of actually how great is it, and what would David's future self say to that imposter right now? You know, hey, go and do one, or you know, whatever it might be. So a lot of it is around using language. You can characterize it out if you want to write fiction, or you can just have a word with yourself.
Okay. And there's a question about structure. I think people generally find it quite easy to start a book, and maybe they even know the end, but they get bogged down and overwhelmed by the middle. What's your structure for putting a book together, Wendy, please?
Sure. So with the structure, how I personally do it, I get a large piece of flip chart paper and I've got Post-its. And what I actually do is on a Post-it notes, I write out everything I can absolutely think of that I want to include in that book. All of the ideas go down on Post-its. And then what we do is we take the Post-its onto the flip chart paper and we spread them out. And it's literally, I go through a process of, okay, so which is more important? Is it this or this? All parts in a book are going to be important, but it's actually thinking about how do I format it so that it does have a beginning, a middle, or an end, or parts. What is it you want your readers to do? So for the person who's reading the book, we've got to get ourselves out of our own way when it comes to structure. It's like if you were, let's say we're taking someone on a walk and you need to walk. I live in Sutton and Cheam is a 40-minute walk away. So how am I going to get there? So literally on those Post-it notes is around charting out. So I plot out the whole of my book before I start writing. I don't start just writing with a blank page. I actually have a structure going on. I don't know how, I have it just behind me. So just to show, because it sometimes helps to have a visual, this is the book literally I've just completed. So I've got the sections here and then the running order. So the beauty of working with Post-its is you can compare and contrast. You can write. So again, for me personally, I never write from chapter 1 through to 12. It may be that I'm writing the key parts in, and also what I do, each one of those Post-it notes is typed up into a Word document, and I work on different sections at different times, and it will then be, when I'm coming towards the completion of the final manuscript, I will do a read through and I will think about, okay, what fits best, what links here, what goes well with this, what is it, what's the journey I'm taking my reader on, how do I get them from here to here, and how well does it flow? So when you start and you have, for me, that visual structure that's out of the head and it's on the paper and you're actually using your physiology, it's not all on your PC or your desktop or your phone, it's actually a visual plan. So that comes out. I will also diarise out days and times when I write. And it's making that commitment to yourself. So one of the ways, again, with content and structure, is I make sure I get that done by paying into a self-publishing program that gives me an end date of when my book is going to go live. Sometimes that book may be up and live even before I've written the content. So again, with the structure, it's about finding out, some of the key questions. What's your why? Who's your ideal reader? Who are you writing for? What are their specific needs and challenges that you can help them with? How will your experience be interrelated with their experience or what they want help with? and what themes and methods and concepts and solid ideas are going to run through your book. So again, what the process I use is define your ideal reader, and the blueprint will help you structure where you're not thinking about yourself, you're actually thinking about the book and what you want your readers to do as you take them through the reading and the writing process. I hope that answers the question in the time frame that we have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I also love the post-it note idea, because you get ideas 24/7. So you can just jot it down on a post-it note. You don't have to forget it. And also you can move it and think, actually, I put it in that chapter, but it's better off in that chapter. So it helps you look at that spreadsheet or that A5, A3 piece of flip chart paper thing. That chapter's not very well balanced. So actually, that's a really good technique. I endorse that. Now, lots of people, Wendy, say writing a book is the easy part. It's the editing that is the nightmare. Or as Stephen King says, it's all about killing your darlings. And you have to really be really quite ruthless and edit and edit. And I think it was, Jeffrey Archer said he edits his books 17 times as a minimum. I mean, you must know it inside out by then, but what are your top tips for editing?
Yeah, my top tips are, or something that has worked for me, is I will very seldom edit as I go along. It can really phase, or people that I'm working with as well, it can really phase you if you start the whole editing and the whole analysing as you go along, or the whatever it's coming up in red dots, or things are binging and bonging, you've got different platforms open as an editing suite. For me, it's more, I believe it's more important to have that content and the structure and the writing flow. And then it may be that you decide so I will have separate writing days and separate editing days. I tend to not do the two together. With the editing as well, so a read aloud is always a great way to recognise what words you're going to stumble over. It may be as well, and this is also what I'm learning, is that I've often, or certainly in my first book, I've tended to speak as I find, and I do pay for a private editor, and one of the words that I used frequently was that. It was the word that, and I hadn't noticed it until they fed that back to me. So with the editing, so any of us can edit in a Word document. There are other platforms. So there's Grammarly Pro. There are free versions of everything, and the free versions will be helpful. And then you have your platforms like Grammarly Pro. There's another one called Pro Writing Aid. It's being aware, actually, when you're doing an upload, that to upload a whole manuscript can kind of lock these platforms. So it may be about doing a chapter at a time, or a platform at a time, a paragraph, at a time. But certainly to learn the words that you overuse, to use thesaurus. So, I mean, I've absolutely loved going through the thesaurus and thinking about, how can I say this differently? How can I use a different word? And actually as well, with your own edit, it may be that any of us who are skilled and we're kind of knowing different dialogue, or we've learned different techniques, or we're using abbreviations, is your reader actually going to know all of those long words or all of those abbreviations? How can we make what we want to say clear, easy and specific? So it's around editing yourself, first of all, checking that through, standing up and doing a read through. So I will print what I edit. So it's not just editing on the screen. I'll print it out, and you can see here I'm a big highlighter. So I will highlight different things. I move to different corners of the room, and I do that read through, because if I'm stumbling over my own words, guaranteed the reader is going to be stumbling over them too. So always as well is around hiring a professional editor. It may be that somebody is an experienced writer. They may want a beta reader to feed back on that, or there are different types of edit available as well. And in a way, the edit is in and of itself something completely different to writing. Agreed, most of us can write, but actually editing is very, very detailed, and depending on the kind of edit you want to have as to the end result and cost, budget, what you want to achieve, that will come into it as well.
It's definitely worth going on some online courses or short courses. When I lived in the UK, I went on business link courses for copywriting and for editing and for proofreading and things like that. Just 1-day courses. It just makes you aware of things like that, you know, that's one of your filler words that you used overly used, and to look out for it. So you're a bit of a media darling, Wendy. You're always in national press. How do you cultivate that sort of profile? You know, because journalists like to go to certain people. How did you strike up those relationships?
Do you know what? And I love the question. I'm laughing here, and sometimes I don't know, Dawn. I'm just me. I'm just very normal and very natural, and I do feel blessed because I've had some opportunities where people have come to me to say, will you do this, or we need a story about this or that. But actually, you know, in all seriousness, my first experience, I did a training with Anne Jersh called Future Life Progression, and part of the training, or the business side, was how to write a press release. And do you know what? I was so keen. Oh, it was a 3-day training. I got back on the Monday, and I contacted, it took me 3 days, I think, and I went through 23 different newspapers and magazines that I wanted to appear in. I learned how to structure a press release. I wrote a press release, I sent it off, and I was contacted first of all by Natural Health magazine. I was fortunate. I had probably 5 over the course of 2 years, 5 articles in Natural Health, and then the magazine Spirit and Destiny said, all my friends working for Natural Health, and will you come in, and can we do this, can we do that? And, you know, that happened literally by fluke. Other times has been colleagues of colleagues, or even intuitively I've known I'm going to be asked to speak, and I've been asked to go to different events to speak. And in terms of on ITV, journalist that I'd worked with knew a little bit about my personal story, and she contacted me to say, hey, you know, I didn't think this would come up, but the story that you told me about this experience that you've had, we are wanting to put you on to ITV. And I'm like, oh God, right, okay, well, I've never been on telly before, but yeah, like, bring it on. So, you know, what you've got to do is you just got to take chances. Yes, you might think, you know, 3 days to get 2 contacts, but actually having 7 magazine features from those 2 magazines. And then, you know, I'm blessed with Monica Kafiki, who's a journalist. She's featured me many times, been in the Daily Mail, Daily Express. And I think as well, if you're organised, so I'm someone that if I was contacted to say, okay, we need a bio, we need a headshot, we need the back cover of your book, we need to know this. I will never cancel clients I've got booked, but actually if I'm there in my pajamas at 6 a.m, I've just opened an email, somebody wants something that is going to help me, and, you know, it's around media, then I'm like, right, I'm on it. So my files are very organised. I check things through. I have a good relationship with people, and I always deliver what I promise to deliver. So some of it has been through good luck, and some of it has been through sheer determination and learning how to do these things and being a bit gutsy with it, just thinking, well, what the heck, it's going to be yes or no. I think I'll just do it. All right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's the importance, again, of being organised and having a media pack so you can respond, because that is one of the things that journalists love, is quick responses and turnaround. So once you've written the book and you've had it edited, and you've felt like a child with all those red scribbles back from your editor, and all of that is done, and the really hard work starts, which is the launch. How do you cope with that? What sort of strategy do you have to get your book to market and in front of the right people?
Yeah, sure. It is interesting because I think for me, I don't find that part hard. Again, I think it's around, maybe it's, I'm trying to, you know, I'm hesitant over the question here. So I think for me, it was just, much of it has been a learning process. So for myself with my 3 books, and again, this is just to share how, if you're using your book within your career, how any expenses can be offset if it's advancing your career, these expenses can be offset. So with all my books, I've gone with a specific self-publishing company. And within that company, they create the cover design. They tell you how to purchase an ISBN number. They will help you with what I call the tech of writing. So they will actually do the Amazon upload and the Kindle conversion. They will study the BISAC codes of what book category to put your books into. So with the marketing, so Amazon is a platform you can market from. You don't necessarily need to have a website. You can have your author bio within the platform. The book cover in and of itself is an asset. It's an evergreen asset, so you can use the book cover as a graphic. Something I've always had done, and again, this is where I invest and I offset it on my business. I will always have my social media banners that will feature my 3 books, and have that as a professional capacity and what I call building the brand. So over the years, my covers have changed. So initially my covers or the media was, red and white, and you'd see me popping up in heart dresses, and the second cover was sort of red, black and white. And also as well, when I'm doing promotions or workshops, I would have the banner stand that goes, the cover of the book is on the banner stand. For something like Right From Your Heart here as well in terms of marketing. So again, just to show you here, I get my cover design really big. When I'm writing, I have that up on the wall in front of me, the layout here. So all of your media and your marketing, you can pull everything you create. This is a freebie that I'm just putting together to give away, 365 days of journaling prompts. And all of the media kit, I mean, some of these things, and I'll be honest, some of the early days or things that aren't included in that marketing publishing program, it may be that I've used designers on Fiverr. There are other sites like Upwork that you can go to. I just want to say that be careful. Sometimes you can make an investment and it's not exactly what you wanted. But I tend to, for anyone that works with me, we'll have referral options where you can go on to work with people who I know, like, and trust, because I can't do everything. So I tend to go to the people that will support me. Again, with the marketing, it's around being organized. It's having a checklist. What do I need to start doing maybe 6 months before, 3 months before, the week before, the day, the next day, the week after? And a book really in and of itself, this is around building a platform and building a tribe. The publishing industry has changed over the years, because if you're thinking about going into publishing with a book deal, most publishers now want to know, hey, what's the size of your list? Who's your tribe? Where are you showing up in the world? The beauty with self-publishing is you get your book out there, you start to get your reviews in, and you can do all of that by creating Canva as well. Canva is a great site. Yeah, it can be a little bit muddly or a little bit time consuming, but it's actually thinking about, what am I really good at? What can I do and do that? And the things that you're not so good at, if you're time poor, you may want to invest and have someone create those things for you. But again, it's actually being organized around, for me, I don't have a TV, I don't watch TV. It may be for me, because I love being creative, that one day or a few hours a day, I might create some memes. I might have a banner made, designed. So you've got to be constantly on it. You're juggling these different balls, and, the marketing and the advertising is a big part of it. Anyone working with the publishers that I work with, they actually offer you, so there's a whole video series. It's a marketing and publishing toolkit within that costing. So that is self-taught. It's a home study self-taught kit, along with their help and support to guide you through that final kind of tech process, which they do for you. So yeah, there's a lot to it, but if I can do it, anyone can do it, guaranteed.
I mean, I think you're right. Again, you've got to be organized, you've got to have a system, but it almost feels like a full-time job if you're going to dot all the I's and cross all the T's and take all the advice from the publisher, do this, do that. And even to going around your local bookstores stores with your sheet and do book signings and all sorts of things. it can really take over your life. And it can be great fun, but it can also be a bit of a chore that I found. But I don't think so for you.
It's I hear what you're saying. I think as well is with my first book, I was writing that. I mean, all of my books I've written alongside what I call my day job. So my day job is as a coach and therapist. So I'm thinking my first book, Find You, Find Love, I sectioned that out. I think for that I was working. I work well in the mornings, and I think I was doing 2 or 3 hours 3 days a week. My second book, I actually had to plot out days. I was a lot busier, probably off the back of the first book, but I would then section out actually writing days. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would have a good chunk of time for the book. With my third book, I've written it slightly differently, and I have had more time because I'm actually gearing my career away from the therapy side of what I call general clients. The whole of my business, I'm moving into writing, coaching, and mentoring. So because I'm transitioning and seeing less clients out of choice around the therapy side of things, that's actually given me more time to manage all of those balls. And as well, what I want to say is I've worked with some brilliant people who they want to write and they got valuable content. It could be that they have families and dogs and people to care for. And, for me, in a way, it's simple and it's easy because I've been single for quite a lot of time. And I can be, in a way, quite selfish around what I want to do and how I want to do it. But I'm also very good at putting in boundaries. So it may be that I don't go out and play, or I don't spend my money on a holiday. I invest it in my book. I invest it in the self-publishing package. So it's going to be different for everyone. I ghostwrite as well. So for someone who is time poor, then there are fabulous ghostwriters out there who will have a chat with you and take your voice and share your voice on your behalf. And you will then go with the assets and you'll have that book in your name.
Yes. Time is a big challenge. So not having a TV and being single must be a massive bonus when you're writing.
Well, sometimes, my mates are talking about what's on, and I'm like, I just don't watch it. The single has its benefits, but hey, that's a different subject.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Just while anybody is wanting to get a last question in, what's on your bedside table at the moment, Wendy? What are you reading of somebody else?
I am reading actually Anne Jersh's latest book, which just came out a couple of weeks ago, called Future Vision, Your Working Life. Anne's actually written the foreword in Write From Your Heart. And I'm also reading The Sought Path, which is around a walking journey. So I've got fiction and educational on the go. So yeah, brilliant. What are you reading, Dawn?
I have in fact, I'm not reading it. It was on Audible, which was quite new to me. And I think it was 30 Hours, The Red Notice, which is a Russian legal case. Absolutely fascinating. It's written like a thriller. I basically took this book on, Kindle or whatever it was, around with me. I had it in the sauna, I had it everywhere, in the car, and I just devoured that book. And it would have taken me a long time to read it. So that was quite a new experience for me. And I think we'll see a lot more books being offered on Audible, not just in fiction, but also in your sort of genres as well.
Yeah. And this is as well, thinking about all audio, is that having those short books when people are on the go, a shorter book is a great book to have transcribed. You can actually write, there's various software where people who are time poor can speak, and that can be transcribed into various different documents that can then be edited and worked with. So there's many different ways of reading and writing, but that sounds brilliant.
So we've had lots of thank yous, great webinar in terms of making connections with publishers and editors. What would be the best way to make these connections? Last question for you, Wendy.
Sure, anyone is welcome to email me. So my direct email is info@wendyfry.com. I'm not sure, can I say my website here, Dawn?
Of course you can.
Yeah, so my website is my name, wendyfry.com. I've been having some bits and pieces added to it, and you know, when you say things can go wrong at the last minute, like your camera not working, you know, the guy is literally in there adding some bits and pieces for me. But yeah, anyone can contact me directly through my website or email me directly. And also as well, to receive that the work with the self-publishing team, then I have an offer for anyone who comes through me, and it's actually a brilliant offer. I work with these guys 3 times, and I'm referring people to them all the time. So yeah, please contact for the introduction, and I can make that introduction. And you know, as well, if there's anything I can help with, then email me, have a look through the site, see what's there. And also as well, just reading my books will help you see how to structure a self-help book. So read a book as a writer and an author, not just as a reader. You can get some great tips for structure and content from those books.
Okay, lovely. So I think you've got an offer for our readers, haven't you, to end the call with?
Yes. So I've been dropping lots of hints as we've gone along. And the offer is, so you've got the 3 books here. So one lucky reader is going to receive Find You, Find Love, How to Get to the Heart of Your Love and Relationships Using EFT. So EFT is Emotional Freedom Technique. Mothers and Daughters, the guide to understanding and transforming the relationship with your mother. So even if she's gone, that is very helpful for all relationships, and also guys, although the scientific bits, the study of women relationships. And then my latest book, Write From Your Heart, Discover Your Author Voice Through Journaling. One lucky listener is going to receive signed copies of those 3 books. And the question is, so the kind of call to action here is, what's the name of my first book? So for the people who email me with the name of my first book, then next week, and I'll be sharing that draw with Dawn. I'm not sure if you're going to be drawing that, Dawn, and contacting them, or we'll kind of work that out. But one lucky reader will be picked from everyone who writes to me and says, hey, this is the name of your first book. And I'll take great pleasure in posting those to you with a signed message, or someone you might want the book signed for if you don't feel that they're for you. But yeah, just contact me, info@wendyfry.com, and I'll be happy to pop those in the post for you.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to catch up and spend time with you, Wendy. Very generous spending an hour with us tonight, and best of luck with your 3rd book. Many congratulations on getting it onto Amazon #1 today. Well done, and thank you very much. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Dawn. And
thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks to everyone who's listened in.
Thank you.